Welcome to our webinar on Trial Spy and Dean tips for winning edge investments. I'm Stephen and I'm the Member Success Manager here at Winning Edge Investments. And I'm going to talk to Dean today about his products and the upcoming Spring Racing Carnival. Hello, Dean.
Hey, Stephen, how you going?
Very well.
Good to chat with you.
Yep, indeed. It's going to be quite an informative webinar, I believe.
Yeah, look, there should be plenty of information on there, and we're all very excited about a big Spring Carnival coming up.
Yeah, it's a fabulous time of the year.
Most certainly.
Okay, so tell us a little bit about the services.
Yeah, so I guess just a bit about myself. I've had two services, Dean's Tips and Trial Spy, available to very strictly limited members since January 2013 through Winning Edge Investments. Combined, those services have delivered over 1,400 units profit since inception, and that's just based on 100 unit banks, an average of around 0.6 units per bet. There's been over 27,000 advised bets to members now, a total of $140,000 profit for a $100 per unit investor, and that's assuming that that you weren't increasing your bank size or your bet size as your bank increased. And I've been various, radio appearances on RSN and the like, and webinars and blogs and podcasts and that sort of thing, just on my approaches to betting and how to treat it as an investment. In terms of how I go about things, I use a very detailed and intensive analysis of a horse racing database, and some unique approaches to identify the horses that I feel the bookmakers or the market have significantly mispriced, so that members can take advantage. I review data and video of trials and races across the country, using advanced understanding and analysis of historical trends and statistics, and sectionals and speed ratings that aren't available in public, and use a concept called isolation to essentially ensure that I'm weighting the correct variables in the right situations. I then convert that to establish a rated price for a runner and use advanced money management staking strategies to ensure long-term profit. In terms of what winning investments do, our aim is to educate our members on how to bet successfully and profitably, and teach them really how professionals approach their punting. How they operate, how they think, and how they take a long-term perspective. And when you have a clear mathematical advantage, that results in actually treating your betting as an investment, and knowing that you're going to be doing it profitably long-term.
And that's the important thing. It's a long-term approach.
Yeah, exactly. I was like a lot of people who get into betting. When I first started, I was green and didn't know much about form and races. Whoops, I think I'm bumping the table here. Go back to where I was. So when I started, it was a passion. I guess horse racing was a passion. It was something that I really enjoyed doing. I knew that I want to bet on horse racing throughout my time because I love the sport so much. So I thought, it's best to educate myself on how to become a profitable and successful punter. That involved, a lot of educating myself on professional punters, their mindset, their skill set, how they went about things, and ultimately, I got to a point where we won plenty, but as is the case in the current environment, was banned from essentially every bookmaker in Australia. So providing profitable selections to others is a good alternative on top of my betting and other investment activities. So my passion really is educating and offering other people the ability to take their betting a bit more seriously, do it profitably, and make additional money on top of their current income, or indeed, as a lot of members ultimately turn out, they end up making it a full-time occupation. And our mission is really just to run an open, transparent service that helps people to bet, profitably and treat their betting as they would any business or investment.
Which is why we call it winning edge investments, as opposed, it's an investment that you're making. It's not just having a punt.
Well, that's right. Punting and gambling are, that term's about taking a chance. They're about on the hope that you'll get a return, whereas investing is very much placing money down on the expectation of making a profit and knowing that you have an advantage, and that's the difference. And I think the reason why the logo is as it is as well, with that arrow, is it's not just a steady stream upwards, like any investment. There's periods of ups and downs, but as long as overall the graph is trending upwards as it goes right, that's what matters in the long term. I get a lot of questions just on the difference between the two services. So, trials by selections based on the thorough assessment of all barrow trials and jump outs across the country. Use very accurate speed ratings of the trials against pars. It enables a very accurate comparison to be made of trialers on a given day at a given track and over varying distances. And I'm able to identify really strong opportunities through the analysis of trials by incorporating this element of form analysis that the bookies and the market undervalue quite substantially. And then with Dean's tips, that's more you call it traditional form analysis, but more based on race form. But again, using speed and class figures that aren't available publicly, comparing ratings against pars, and to compare runners that are coming from different form lines, different tracks, distances, states, and classes. Again, looking at those key criteria that the bookies in the market actually undervalue the most, and looking at historical information, whether that's on previous big race winners or their preparations, or historical and statistical patterns of trainers and jockeys, and also using experience to determine where those speed or other ratings might be incorrect or ineffective or unreliable, and avoiding betting on those races or horses. I use a concept I've coined isolation, which is really just about determining which particular factors are most important to assess, given the situation of a race. So, whether the class, whether it's metro versus provincial versus country, the track condition, whether it's synthetic or grass, the course, distance, speed map. In different races, those different factors are more important, and you need to give a greater or lesser weighting, given those situations. And I think most form analysts and most ratings providers or assessors tend to have the same weighting of their ratings, regardless of the race or the race or the distance or the course. And for me, it's a very different weighting based on those scenarios. I think that's where the big edge comes from. This is just a results breakdown of the profit of the services. Trial Spy has made 732 units profit since inception, and Dean's Tips 687 units profit. As you can see, win betting is the major driver of the profits, and is a major focus in terms of units invested. And over time, I'm finding win betting more and more appealing over the other options, just the way that the market is shaping at the moment. So combined, that's $140,000 a lifetime profits. That's assuming a member has kept betting the exact same amount of $100 per unit, or an average bet of just $60. So it's not even assuming that they're going to increase their bets, obviously, as profit increases, which is the feedback that we obviously get from most members, is that they do substantially increase their bet sizes. Often might start at $50 a unit, then go to 100, then go to 200, and then go to 500 as they're expanding and growing. And that's a 700% ROI in under 100 years. So it's sort of 100% ROI per year, which, when you compare it to bank interest or shares or properties, obviously a markedly better return. And just a point underneath there was that just even in the August to October period, so sort of the Spring Carnival period, you can see Trial Spy that's 25% of the year, but actually 47% of profits come in that quarter. For Dean's winners, 38%. And over the next 6 months, from August to January, sort of 60 and 64%. So this actually turns out to be the most profitable period, is around that spring period.
Would that be in part due to an increased number of bets over the period with Spring Race and Carnival running?
Potentially. I think there's a few drivers. A couple of the biggest ones, first, I think it's the better horses. The better horses are racing, they're more reliable. And I think the assessments are more accurate when those big horses running the big races and all out there doing their best. I think the tracks are drier as well. The tracks are certainly a lot drier during the Spring Carnival than the Autumn Carnival. And that just reduces the variance a bit and the variability of results. And I think also the Spring Carnival's, the biggest betting period. So the odds that you can get and the market opportunities are substantially greater as well, because the pools are deeper and there's more people betting, and probably a bit more mug money as well in the market. So I think all of those factors, help to contribute to the greater profits during this period of time. What everyone gets with Winning Edge Investments is a members information pack. Has FAQs. We talk about the opportunity of betting, which is really how, the fact that when you're betting, you can turn over your money multiple times. It means, if you have, say, a $10,000 bank, you might be turning over $100,000, let's say, in a year, which means you've only got to make a 10% profit on turnover, and you're making $10,000 profit, which is a 100% return on your money. The banks will pay you, 2% on that, and shares, you might get 20% per annum if you're as good as Warren Buffett. And even property only doubles every 7 years, whereas when you're betting on horses, you can fairly safely, and when we've got the results to prove it, double your money each year. So it's a great opportunity. There's 20 tips on getting the best possible odds, which is the better odds you get, the more profit you can drive. How to avoid getting banned by bookies, and what to do about account restrictions, which is an issue a lot of members face when they follow our services. We talk about variance, the importance of sound bankroll management and perspective, understand market percentages and Betfair and the best bookies and betting products to use, and those sorts of things. And that's I need to update that slide. There's actually 120 pages that members get of information in that pack.
Yeah, it's a very useful tool for people who have been in the game for just coming into it, or who have been in it for a long time.
Yeah, absolutely. I think from novices to really serious players alike, there's a lot of value in there, and it's sort of the culmination of many years of and thoughts of myself and a number of professionals in the game. Just in terms of the betting advice that you get with my services, you get a comment on the race suitability or the trial performance, based on the service. We set the third best fixed price that's available, and that's only from a small selected number of bookies. So sometimes it could be an even lower price, and provide very clear guidance with each bet on whether we believe you should take 100% of the advised bet, or 75%, or 50%, or 25% at the fixed price. So we might say you have one unit on this horse, and your unit might be $100. We might say 50% at the fixed price. That'll be having $50 at the fixed price, and then $50 at BOB, or Betfair SP, or the best product that you have access to with your bookies. Because a lot of members, especially the newer guys, have a lot of those promos and those sorts of options available to them too, like price boost and money back if you're second and third, and all those sorts of things. So a lot of members can leverage those as well with their betting. So in terms of the betting options available to people, taking the best price available, in terms of monitoring prices, is always the best way to go. And we have some members who work full time. Some of them sometimes take a toilet break or a cigarette break, or a little break, and monitor the markets, and not 5 minutes before the race. So on Saturday and Sunday, most people are available potentially to sit there and monitor prices. And these days with things like dynamic odds, you can check the prices of every bookie at the one time, and you've got the ability to compare prices and bet when suits. So that's always advised. BOB is the best of the totes and top fluck. And VicBet do that on all races in Australia every day. Likes of Top Sport, Ladbrokes, Bet Easy, and Bookmaker all offer it. On Saturdays and major meetings. You then got Best Tote SP, which is what most corporate bookies offer, and Betfair SP, where you can click the SP button on Betfair. You can also input a minimum price, so if the horse gets below your minimum price, then you don't bet. And Top Fluck's an alternative, as well as obviously just taking the best fixed price available with the corporates when the bet comes. So there's a wide range of options that punters have at the moment, to get the best price if they don't have the time on that particular day or time, to monitor the prices. Just going through some examples of big price winners that we've had with Dean's tips. We tipped a horse called Khan at 200 to 1. I think it was 150 to 1 after deductions. Emma D was 100 to 1. It actually paid $260 on Betfair SP and got out to as much as, they traded between sort of 400 and 560 to 1 on Betfair for about 5 minutes during the race. A number of other, big price winners, Sacred Falls, and the like, from 50 to 1, 40 to 1, 33 to 1, and all were the only tip in the race. And then some races we've had, 2 or 3 tips in the race. We've had, Stage Girl 125 to 1, Kaiser France at 70 to 1, a whole lot of, 50 to 1, 40 to 1, and 30 to 1 winners, over the course of time. So certainly backing big price winners is, a real feature and hallmark of the service.
Okay, so backing multiple horses in a race is quite profitable then.
No, absolutely. It's something that some novices don't understand, but it's something that professionals do regularly. And the easiest way to explain it is, let's say that let's say it was a 3-horse race, and and you thought, let's just say you thought all 3 horses had exactly equal chance of winning. And so they should all be priced at $3 if you're doing your own ratings, $3 odds, because you think each of the 3 horses have the exact same chance of winning. But if the market has, a $1.50 hot favourite in the race and the other 2 are $6, well, why would you not back both of the other 2 horses? They're both big value, and it would be silly to try to choose one over the other when they're both clearly profitable bets if you've rated them $3 and you can get $6 in the market. So I guess that's essentially the theory, and that can extrapolate to backing 3 or 4 horses potentially. If there's, for example, a very hot favourite in a race, and I don't think it should be anywhere near as short as it is, then I'll look to back the next few that I think are most likely to beat it. And depending on what odds are available, I'm happy to back multiple horses if it means making a big profit on the race. So just an example, of the sort of things that I go through, my thought process. So Khan was a runner that we backed at 200 to 1. You can see the form there, but beaten 9 lengths, beaten 9 lengths, beaten 10 lengths, and that's why a lot of people had turned off it. Most punters and bookies are looking at the horse and think it's been beaten a long way in its last couple of runs, never won at the distance, little known trainer, inexperienced jockey, and very poor form, so the horse has no chance. For me, I guess where I find these big price winners is by looking a lot deeper. Khan had won 2 Saturday Metropolitan Class 6 events. It had won over the similar distance to today's race. It had won at the course. It had won a variety of tracks, so the track condition was no issue. It's the same trainer throughout the career and the same jockey who'd won it previously at Doomben. So it had similar form lines to its previous, 2 Metropolitan Saturday victories, and it was expected to lead in a race with below average speed. And noting on its odds, it had actually, the last 2 times it had won, it had paid over 200 to 1 on Betfair SP as well. So, putting all of those factors in together, it was a question of, well, there's no actual reason why this horse can't come out and win. It actually has a similar profile to wins it has had the similar class at a similar distance previously, and we got 200 to 1 about that horse. Stage Girl, another example, was 150 to 1. We advise members to back it. Again on form, 6 starts for no wins and no placings. The form was looking ordinary. But in my database, it had the third highest peak distance rating. They actually had a positive trainer change, and the trainer had very good stats at the track. The blinkers were going on, and it was on pacer from a good draw in a race where there was below average speed expected, which were all big positives at a track like Pinjarra. And it had a very high speed and class rating when it ran 5th at Ascot. So again, looking deeper into the form, it actually rated very well on my ratings, and we got as much as 150 to 1 about it. MOD was another example. This was a horse where, the official price that we recorded was 100 to 1. That was available with, every single bookie when the bet was sent out. But they traded between $430 and $560 in the last 5 minutes, and the Betfair SP was $260. Again, you're looking at the form lines, been beaten a long way, 15 lengths, 12 lengths, 7.5 lengths. Noting though, it had been beaten 2.8 lengths over Toowoomba Mile and a maiden, and only 4 lengths in a C1. And this was a Toowoomba Mile maiden. So again, I've been beaten 35 lengths its last 3 runs, never won or placed at the distance, never won or placed at the course or on a good track. The trainer and jockey had a poor record, and so most punters are just riding this horse off immediately. Again, is where the assessments that I do and the detail that I go into with the forms, I would identify that the horse had only been beaten 4.9 lengths in a Saturday Metro race, and it was very unlucky when only beaten 2.8 lengths in a maiden race when it actually could have won the race, but it got held up and blocked. It was only beaten 4 lengths in a C1, which is a greater class than it was running. In the race that we backed it. It had the 3rd highest peak distance rating and only 1 length from the top. It had the highest individual speed performance. It had 2 good performances at the distance, and it definitely looked like it ran its best races on its home track at Toowoomba. Had the same trainer and same jockey that could have won on it previously when it was unlucky. And its 2 runs over that course and distance were very good, and that's what I assisted on. And it was backed into $11 in the Class 1. And then was now 100 to 1 plus in the maiden. So again, looked a good bet, and we backed it, and fortunately it got up at massive odds. A few other quick examples. Time and Truth was a horse running in a Bunbury maiden, but it only been beaten 1.5 lengths in a Saturday Metro race at Ascot. The 2nd highest speed rating, only half a length from the top rater, and the 3rd rater was 5.5 lengths behind on my ratings, and had 2 of the 5 highest ratings overall. The official price we recorded was $23. You actually could have got $80 on Betfair SP, or as much as 140 to 1 on Betfair. Fishbones Fry, another example of a horse whose race form on paper looked terrible. And we officially recorded $34 as the price, but Betfair SP you could have got $60 or as much as $90 on Betfair. And again, the trainer had very strong stats. It had a positive rider change, had the 3rd highest speed rating and 4th highest peak distance rating, and the trainer jockey combo had excellent stats. So it looked a good bet and was able to get up. Just 2 Vs. There are a couple of examples, of horses for courses. So the 4th highest peak distance rating and the 2nd highest speed rating at the track, and got up at 40 to 1. And Shazzy Lee was another, and Hawkesbury. A lot of people talk about Hawkesbury being a graveyard track, and they don't like to bet there. But I find there are a lot of it's a real horses for courses track, and horses that have run well there previously can often get up at big odds. And just 2 Vs at 40 to 1 was one example. Another example here was Shazzy Lee at 50 to 1. That actually was Betfair SP at 100 to 1. Ran 7th in the provincial championship, which was a 400k race, not beaten far. His next 2 runs at Hawkesbury to run 2nd beaten a nose to a black type performer, and won by 1.8 lengths in the provincial championships qualifier. So I thought it was a good chance in the race. It had the 2nd highest speed rating at the track. That's a real horse of the courses track, and won for us at 100 to 1 Betfair SP. And just the last sort of example, Kaiser France, another one. This again, the concept of isolation I've spoken about. Eagle Farm, that was the old track. It was an absolute swamp. Very, very heavy track. And so I focus on horses who'd run well at that particular track in that swamp, and show them that they could handle that sort of track. France Run third, beat 9.5 length on a heavy track recently. 2 horses that have beat were right shorter on the market, and they had the equal top course distance speed rating, and won at Betfair SP of $130. Another element that we that we have had success with in the past is quaddies. These days sort of limit the quaddies, but when there's big jackpots or look like there's big odds runners in multiple races that we're betting in, and it looks like there could be some big overlays in the quaddies, we have a go, and we got a $20,000 quaddie at Kalgoorlie, a $28,000 quaddie at Esperance, and that can mean some pretty huge results, for members when we strike those. So I thought I'd just summarize on some tricks on how to find really big value winners. And these are some of the tricks that people can use when they're having a look at betting during the Spring Carnival. One thing is going back to back. So horses who've won or run well in the same race in a prior year often have a tendency to come back and do the same, and often end up being big odds due to the recent form they're in. But often horses are seasonal and they can really bounce back in the same race at the same track or in the same sort of season. Raw speed and sectionals is something that your average punter who's looking at a form guide and seeing that a horse might have run fifth, and 2 horses might have run fifth in different races over the same distance at the same track, but if there's 2-second difference in the time, that can be there's actually a 12 length difference in performance, and it's only by looking at the speed and the sectionals that you actually understand the reality and are able to compare horses from either the same or different races, and that's a big advantage to have over the standard public. There's certain horses that go very well for a certain jockey, so sometimes I can increase the rating of a horse based on who's riding it, because certain jockeys have certain affiliations with horses, and conversely also a major jockey upgrade. So there's some very poor jockeys with very poor records, and if they get an upgrade to a jockey with a very good record, often they can jump out of the ground. As I've shown in some of the previous examples, track distance specialists, there's certain horses who just love certain track sort of distances, and then when they get to that their preferred scenario, their film can really turn around. And wet bog track specialists as well, can have a couple of runs on the dry, have very bad form, and then come out big odds when it's wet, which is their favorite conditions, and win. SP profiling is another example, and that's really where can help with young horses particularly, but any sort of horses where they might have had one run or two where they were very short in the market, might have been favourite or close to favourite, run poorly. But sometimes if you look at the stewards' reports, you might see that they got injured, or there might be another factor or reason why they ran poorly, or just had a bad day, and often they'll come out at really big odds the next start. And by SP profiling, you can sort of see from their starting price that actually they would have been much bigger, were expected to run a lot better, and should be much shorter odds in the current race. And trainer change is another real factor that I take into consideration. A lot of horses, like people, I think, can just have a change of environment and can really improve when they've been switched to a different trainer. Just going through the power of Betfair, just some examples, because I really want to stress how, a lot of people talk about being banned from bookmakers and that sort of thing. But Betfair is there, and you can get some incredible prices. M&D officially was 100 to 1. Betfair SP was $260, and was trading $430 to $560 in the last 5 minutes. Time of Truth was officially $23. Betfair SP was 80, up to 140 available. Fishbones Fry, another example, officially 34. There's huge odds available on Betfair. Shazzy Lee was officially 50 to 1. Best Tote 60. Betfair SP 100 to 1. And Kaiser France, another that obviously in Best Tote around the 70s, but Betfair SP 130. So some huge opportunities in utilising Betfair.
And the advantage of Betfair is they will never restrict you.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And when we come into spring racing time, the volumes start getting really large as well. So that really helps with the liquidity and the opportunity for punters. And as you say, they don't restrict how much you can have on a horse, and they'll never ban you if you're winning too much. So it is fantastic. And there's just a few testimonials, and people are watching the recording. They can press pause and have a read if they like. So I'll just switch over now. That was sort of a summation of Dean's tips. So I'll just switch over now to Trial Spy and give people a rundown of that service. We've had some big results with that service too, focusing on the trials. Cloud cover was 100 to 1. They bet as much as 450 to 1 on Betfair. Heroes Crest was another 100 to 1 winner. You can see we've had plenty of 60 to 1, 50 to 1 winners. But a lot of those, as you'll see, were $80 or 100, 150 to 1 on Betfair. Some big place prices too. We've had some good futures bets. Sunlight, as much as $34 was available, and when I tipped it to members to win the Magic Millions as a futures bet, it came out as $3 favourite and won by about 4 lengths. Zoo Star was another at around $15, and the Golden Rose we advised members to bet about a month before the race. And we've had some big trifectas too, $4,000 trifecta and a $10,000 trifecta over the time, which again was just focusing on the best trialers in the race, and getting some big collects from that. In terms of how Trial Spy works, I treat trials as just a mini race, because they're not an official race. Not all the horses are trying. So large databases and betting models and syndicates either cannot or do not reflect the results of these accurately in their betting models. There's a big edge to analysing these accurately, and most fail to do so. So at least a certain star trial is being largely overbet and under the odds. The assessment of trials is similar to that of a race. So, do the form beforehand, then analyse the times, the finishing margins, and the class of each horse. If a horse performs, above the expectations of a horse of its current class, then that's the sort of horse that I like to follow in a preparation. This just sort of shows how Trial Spy works. It's really about focusing on a trial performance. And you can see in all these examples of cloud cover, its last start it was been 34 lengths, and the start before that it was been 8 lengths. And Heroes Quest, the average beaten margin its last 3 starts was 9 lengths. But these horses had trialled very well, and that's the key. If I'm watching a trial which is not as well incorporated into the final odds by the bookies and by the market, and I assess that these horses are actually in this preparation have improved substantially and are doing a lot better than their race form suggests, and that's where we can get these huge priced winners, simply by identifying those opportunities and where the market's got it very wrong. And one factor that members really seem to enjoy about the service is finding top liners. So every one of these horses was actually a horse that we backed at its first start. And so you find there's a lot of these ratings guys and they identify a horse after the fact, telling you that a horse is very strong. But these are all horses that we've backed before their first start. Winx, obviously a champion. Red Zell has won 2. Everest, Chautauqua, Zoo Star won the Golden Rose for us. Sunlight, who won the Magic Millions for us at big odds, and the Newmarket at huge odds as well for us. A multitude of Golden Slipper winners: Capitalist, Vancouver, Moss Fun, Overreach. And some horses that are still going around in big races now. Alizé, Group 1 mare, and Classic Legend, who I think could be the next up and coming star, and is going to be running in the Everest as well. These are all horses that we've identified at their first start and then backed through their 2-year-old or 3-year-old years and through their campaigns and had a lot of success following. Just some tricks and tips for those again who want some insight on how to find big value trialers. A few of the factors I look at, the speed compared to other trials on the day. So quite often a horse can look really impressive in a trial, but then if they're running a slow time comparatively, then often it's not as good as it looks in the eye, and vice versa. A horse can look not particularly impressive, but you look at the time and go, wow, no wonder, it was under pressure because it was running a blistering time. So, comparing those speed and unfortunately the times of trials are quite inaccurate in the newspapers or the form guides or the racing body websites. So I ensure that I'm using verified times from multiple sources to ensure that the times are accurate. Horses that are trialling well out of their class, you can find young horses or maidens, often trialling against Saturday Metro class horses or black type horses, and if they're holding their own, then that'll often give you a good indication. Then when they actually go back to the races in maiden class or lower class, they'll perform very well. A lot of horses just improve. I'm watching trials of all horses. So if I've seen a horse trial in previous preparations and then suddenly see it trial much, much better this preparation, I know that horse has improved a lot. And so I can rate it a lot better than its current ratings are, from its race form. Some horses are ridden out. A lot of people don't like seeing horses that are ridden out, whipped by the jockey or, really shaking the reins at it. But that's not necessarily bad if it runs time or shows a turn of foot. And conversely, a horse that's hard held, often they can be overplayed. People see, the jockey really holding the horse tightly. But if the time's slow or the class is weak or it's unproven, then it doesn't really tell you much. And those horses can be overbet. And also knowing your trainers is the other key trick. So some trainers have horses fully wound up for a trial, or others don't, as they use the trials for fitness. So horses down trials. So, if you don't, sometimes, they trial really well, but they don't actually run up to those performances and they're overbet. And other times you can find trainers whose horses usually don't trial as well, but they run a lot better, in the races. And so knowing that enables you to really accurately assess and rate a race. This was just some feedback from a survey we did a while ago in terms of comparing, trials by other services. And some pretty positive feedback there overall about rates compared to others. Again, being a webinar, people can sort of pause the webinar and just read through some of these. But from previous surveys, how people have described Trial Spy. Focusing a lot on how profitable it is and enjoyable to follow the service. And the number one value again, profitability and finding big priced winners, and ultimately treating their betting seriously and making great profits from it. And from my perspective, there's a lot of hard work that goes into it, but seeing people say they're able to go overseas or buy a horse or pay off the mortgage or even quit their job and concentrate on full-time punting. These are some of the things that really excite me and give me great pleasure and to make sort of the hard work worth it when you get this sort of feedback on what people have been able to do with the profits from the service. And just a few more testimonials there that people can pause and read if they wish to. Just on futures bets, this is what we do. To look at horses that we expect are going to start much shorter on the actual day and taking big prices early. So we got as much as $34 about Sunlight to win the Magic Millions, and I advise members about a month before the race to back this horse. She'd run 11 lengths above par, winning a trial. And F Troop, who was a very speedy horse, and one of the Magic Millions favourites at the time, was 7 lengths above par on the same day. And Sunlight beat a horse called Outback Magic, who hadn't had a race yet, but then went out and won a listed fillies race, on its debut. So, $34 was a crazy price for the Magic Millions, and we took advantage of that. And she started the $3 favourite and won with a leg in the air. Zoostar was another that trialled really well against black type horses as a young horse, and we backed it sort of up to $17 in fixed odds, and it ran as expected and won the race. Last year we had a couple of futures bets. Zoosane at 20 to 1 in the Coolmore Studs and $10 at the Golden Rose. Started much shorter in both races. It actually started the favourite in the Coolmore Stud Stakes. Ran second in both races, beaten the next, so we were a bit unlucky there. But the key with Trial Spy is we actually backed the winner of the Coolmore Stud, Sunlight, anyway. In the Golden Rose, we backed the winner of the Autumn Sun, as they were Trial Spy horses as well, horses who trialled well. And I find that in most of the major big, 2 and 3 year old races, it's usually the Trial Spy horses, the horses that we've identified from the trials that actually subsequently go out and win those big races. In terms of Dean's tips, last year we had a good futures bet in Santa Ana Lane, around $12 that won the VRC Classic, and put that on a couple of weeks before the race. And they don't always win, but ones I'm very proud of are actually when you get enormous value, even if they don't win. And so we backed Thinking Big last year, 17 to 1 in the Spring Champion, 40 to 1 in the VRC Derby. It started the hot favourite in both of those races, ran third in the Spring Champion. It won 2 other races very easily during its preparation. Didn't happen to win those races, but the key is when you got those huge odds, you got a massive value over the market. And there were a lot of punters and a lot of tipping services tipping these horses at odds of $3 or under $3 in both of those races, and we'd got $17 and $41. Lean Machine was another example in the Coolmore Stud Stakes where we took 67 to 1 in the early futures markets. And it ran third and was only beaten a length, and members could have traded back off it at single figure odds on race day. And again, we backed the winner, Sunlight, of that race. Just in terms of odds achievability, a lot of other tip services, sometimes people complain about not being able to get the odds. That's very much not the case of this service, and the proof is in the pudding. Every 20 to 1 winner that we've had, these are the official prices, and if I add all the official prices together, it sums to 428. If you've just taken BOB on all of those runners, it adds up to 440. If you're taking the best fixed price during betting, it's 487. If you're just taking Betfair SP, it's 473. Which is a good 45 points above the official price. And using Betfair and monitoring and Betfair, get anywhere up to 604 total. So you can see there's a massive opportunity for punters to get much bigger odds on these bets. And noting that none of these are even the outlier examples. The examples that I've shown above, horses like Emady and Casa France and Chazzy and all those aren't even in this included in here. So the opportunity is very, very huge for Betfair. And I know, Stephen, you use Betfair pretty religiously.
Yeah, it's particularly on Saturdays where there's high liquidity. You can oftentimes just get much better prices than we will officially record. And you'd be mad not to be using Betfair.
Yeah, and you can see here that virtually every big winner is on a Saturday. So look, that's it. For those who have taken the time to listen to this webinar, we're offering a special offer for anyone who joins both Dean's Tips and Trial Spy. If you join the monthly packages, you get a free bonus week for both services. If you join the quarterly package, we'll give you a free bonus month for both services. That's a $554 bonus, plus you get a profit guarantee. And for those who really want to treat their betting like an investment, take it really seriously, and start really making big profits with their betting. If you subscribe to the annual package for both services, you get a free bonus quarter for both services. That's 6 months worth of value, or $1,662 that you're saving can add to your betting bank, plus the profit guarantee. These services have had $140,000 lifetime profit on an average bet size of just $60. You get it's actually a 120-page members information pack to really educate you. We obviously have Stephen, who's a member success manager who can be called or emailed anytime. You can ask him any question; he'll happily answer. I'm also always available. You simply reply to any email with any tip, and I'm happy to answer any questions at any time. And for those that act quickly, they'll get the first set of futures bets for Dean's Tips and Trial Spy, and there will be futures bets going throughout the spring where we see there's big opportunities. And also, people join both services and email, into member success at winningedgeinvestments.com. Email one of the tricks for finding a big value winner that was mentioned earlier in the webinar. If correct, you go into the draw and you can win both of the services you've subscribed to for free for the period that you subscribe. So there's a special little offer there for those who've listened to the webinar. That's it. From me, our website is winningedgeinvestments.com. You can email Stephen at membersuccess@winningedgeinvestments.com, or indeed you can email me at dean@winningedgeinvestments.com. Thank you for the time. Wish you well whether you decide to join the services or not with your spring betting punting. But if you do have any questions at all, please feel free to get in touch with us, and Stephen will happily email or call you back and talk you through the services and how to maximise your profits for the Spring Carnival period.
Indeed, and it looks like being a really good Spring Carnival this year.
Yep, plenty of big new races and fantastic opportunities to make some big profits.
Great. Okay, well, thanks for that, Dean. It's been very informative, and I'm sure our members and our new members will have a splendid time coming up.
Fantastic. Thanks very much.
Okay. Thanks, Dean.
Cheers.